I started my journey of conscious parenting around 8 years ago, when one of my child started rebelling left, right, and center. Whatever I would say, they would rebel, they wouldn't listen, and then tell me, "You don't understand me." And that was a big wake up call. And I said, "I'm doing definitely something wrong because nothing is working. She, this child of mine is not listening." So it was time to look into the mirror and see what was going wrong. Is something wrong with my child or something wrong with me? I started asking because it's just not working. And that was the beginning of my journey. And I started doing multiple courses, from raising beautiful girls and courageous boys, and doing multiple things like Surrendered Wife with Sister Shazia Haji. She's my mentor, my teacher, my sister. So multiple things in order to introspect and retrospect and constantly ask myself, what am I doing wrong? What is going on? And that was just the beginning of the journey. And I'm very happy to say that 8 years down the line, my life has changed. Every year, my children tell me I'm more connected. They are my gurus, they are my guides, my spiritual guides, because if there's anything that takes a toll on a person, the biggest relationship that's going to trigger you are your children. Definitely, they will trigger you left, right, and center, and they'll press your buttons, and they will make sure that you learn those lessons that you have come here to learn about spirituality, about patience, about gratitude, about resilience, about living your life in the present moment, and about understanding that you have higher purpose. They are your guides. We have this misconception that we are guiding our children, but actually the children are here to guide us. So I have 3 beautiful kids, and I can't say children anymore because they're all grown up. I have a daughter who is 21, the other one is 19, and the third child is 17-year-old son. And every child of mine taught me different lessons. There was one child who taught me acceptance, accept me for who I am. The other one taught me patience. If I'm late, you wait. And that was my biggest trigger. So, waiting has always been an issue because being on time has always been my thing. So I learned patience, I learned gratitude, I learned how to wait, how to accept the children for who they are. Truly accept them for who they are, without resistance, without domination, without hierarchy, punishment, and all that. So let me just start my PowerPoint, and we can keep the questions later, but it's an interactive session. So I will ask you a few questions and I'll check the chat, but there will be short answers so we can finish the presentation hopefully in time. So we're going to talk about conscious parenting. And before I do that, I just wanted to ask that I want your input. Who am I to guide you? We are all divine beings. All of you have the answers within. So before I go into what is conscious parenting, if I could have some participation, or just what do you think conscious parenting means? What do you think conscious parenting is?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, yes.
I think for me, like being a conscious parenting, from the Islamic perspective, is having that triangle where it's me, Allah, and then my kids. So kind of when I'm dealing with my kids, putting Allah into every equation rather than it being emotionally what I feel.
Okay, that's beautiful, mashallah. That's beautiful. That's amazing. The thing is, so that's a nice thing. Maybe somebody else can share as well, so I can hear 2 people. Something else as well, please.
Assalamu alaikum, I'm Fatima. I think conscious parenting is being present, like not being distracted. If your child's talking to you, yes, literally, block out everything else, and for that few seconds, be with that child, be there in that present, not thinking about still got the cooking to do or the shopping list or whatever.
Exactly. Very good. Wow, that was amazing as well. Mashallah. Thank you, ladies. So yeah, so just a second, yeah. So thank you for describing conscious parenting, but now we'll go to the main description, which is conscious parenting shows us how our own transformation is integral to our children's emotional development. It focuses on how we can raise our own awareness, shift our attention from the child's behavior to our own. It asks us to take a deep dive into our own emotional legacy to support our children's emotional development. So now here, these are big words, yeah? But what it actually means is that you don't focus on fixing the child or disciplining the child. Instead, you are present in the present moment, being aware when you are being triggered, looking at yourself. How are you parenting? Are you mindful? Are you present? Are you positive? Are you listening? Yeah. So you shift the focus from fixing the child to your own development. So, like in Islamic perspective, we could say, I would always say accountability, muhaseba, muraqaba, setting the intention in the morning that I'm going to be present, I'm going to be mindful, I'm going to be positive. And it's hard work, right? Because it's not fixing the child. It is supposed to be introspection. How can I be a better version of myself? How can I, create this shift within me? And why is this important? When we come to conscious parenting, we have to understand one thing, and that is our childhood deeply impacts our parenting. Conscious parenting focuses on how our own childhood impacts our children's childhood. Most of us are unaware of how our emotional legacy could be impacting how we parent. Healing our own emotional baggage will disrupt patterns that may have passed down through generations, giving our child a solid foundation for their emotional development to thrive. So, here, these are all difficult words. And I understand that, it's a lot of things to process, but basically, what I'm trying to say is we are supposed to heal ourselves in order to understand that if we do want to do conscious parenting, we have to be awake. Am I emotionally regulated? Am I mindful? Am I present? Living in the present moment is very important. So, what are the obstructors of conscious parenting? Three main obstructors which we see for any connection to happen or any intimacy to happen, we have to understand what blocks us. So, whenever you are triggered by your child, you are late for school, you are not being able to do something because the child is nagging you or having a tantrum, whatever it is, whenever you get triggered, you need to catch yourself in that moment and say, I see you, I recognize you, and try to be aware. So when you are triggered, you know that you are mad. So always look for your triggers and hold yourself accountable. Hold that thought. We'll discuss more about the triggers in other slides. So the three things that actually are the biggest hindrance in parenting or connection by, what I'm trying to say is correction is later. Always connection is first. So connection over correction. What is hindering our connection is distraction. Unfortunately, we are living in a time where we are so distracted, one chore after the other. And it's either the dishwashing washer or the clothes or the drive to school or whatever it is. We have multiple things to do. Then we have extracurricular activities, we have madrasa, we have tutoring. So we are so busy with the children doing, we don't even have the time to sit in peace. We are human beings, not human doings, but we are busy doing one chore after the other. And what happens is we get distracted. Sometimes, even if we have time, we're busy on our phones. We are on the internet, we are on the social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. We are not sitting in silence. So we are not meditating enough. We are not sitting grounded enough. We are not sitting in silence. We are human beings and not doings. But because we are constantly doing, We are distracted. So being in the present moment is really hard for us. We rarely sit still. So that's a problem. So we need to address that in our lives. Number two is anxiety. We are constantly worried about our children. It's either in the present, I'm getting late for school, or it could be you have not finished your homework and now you are a failure. You don't understand. You are not going to pass, whatever it is. We are constantly worried about our children, either about their present or about their future. So we don't live in the present moment. And how does this anxiety show up in children's lives? What it shows up is micromanagement, right? Hoovering, constantly checking. Have you done your homework? Did you take your bath? Did you pray namaz? Did you do this? Did you do that? Or rescuing children. Yeah, when children are feeling their big emotions, they are crying, they are upset, they have failed. We fail to validate. Many times we start rescuing. If the child starts crying, we would go, okay, don't cry, because we ourselves get upset. We are enmeshed, we are attached to our children. So when they cry, we also feel upset. But instead of addressing our emotions and self regulating, we start rescuing the child and telling them, it's okay, you don't need to cry. Then there is another thing that shows up in our anxiety, which is lecturing, sermoning, opinionating. Oh my God, how much I have done this in my life, I know. And the children would just say, Mommy, please shut up. Just shut up. You're too much is coming from you. So that was a big lesson, lecturing, opinionating, sermonizing, giving a hadith and a lecture. At the time the child is angry, you're not supposed to do that. And then controlling. Yeah, I'll do this. You're not allowed this. You're not allowed this. Keeping everything in check. All right. So that's how anxiety shows up. And the reason anxiety is there is because we have fear. And the fear is a fear of failure. And we are trying to protect them from, failure. If only we knew life is ebb and flow. We cannot control anything in our lives. We can't control anyone or anything. Failure is very important in life. If we have fear of failure, then what happens is we are micromanaging, we are trying to overdo things. What happens is when the child fails, we feel like a failure because we think we own our children. That's another misconception, right? We don't own our kids. They came through us. They are spiritual beings. We have to look at them with divinity. And we have to understand that fear is the thing that's leading us to do controlling things, right? It's the fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of I'm not enough, fear of I'm not lovable, right? All these multiple fears we have because we all come from lack, because when we process from ego, I'll come to that later. But the fear is something that keeps us, in this mode of micromanagement, hoovering, rescuing, controlling. So whenever you see these things happening, be careful. The last thing is reactivity. Oh, now that's a huge one. Whenever we are in ego, we are going to be screaming, shouting, punishing, timeouts, silent treatment. Some parents do this. It's very harmful, but yeah. So how can we change? And why is it so hard to change? Before we can change, we have to get to the root of the behavior, which is our belief systems. Our belief systems or worldviews are created in early childhood. They dictate the way we see the world, in turn, the way we react to it. Belief systems are lenses that we look at the world through, created from our earliest experiences, 0 to 7 years, through social, cultural, and parental conditioning. When we address the way we look at the world, we make room for the real long-term changes. So what's the issue here? The thing is, we want to fix our behaviors, right? We want to fix our habits, our behaviors, our personality traits, our communication styles, but we are trying to change the reaction here. We are trying to change the behavior. But where does the behavior come from? It comes from our feelings. And where do the feelings come from? They come from our thoughts. Where do the thoughts come from? The thoughts come from, you see, our belief systems, which were created when we were um, little kids between 0 to 7, our subconscious mind, right? Our mind of preference, our subconscious mind, our mind of preference, that was created, our belief systems were created between 0 to 7 years. So now, if we don't change our belief systems, we are not going to see the child in the way they are. So accepting them for truly who they are, for their authentic self. The problem is in our belief systems. Yeah. And then parenting is generational. So we do what we know, right? We were scolded, we were punished, we were unfortunately disrespected. So we are doing the same thing. What we received, we are going to give, right? Unless we are conscious of what we are doing, seeing the child as a whole, seeing this child as a spiritual being, and seeing that the child is divine and honoring that is very important. So, Dr. Shefali Sabari, whose book is The Conscious Parent, is Conscious Parenting, is written by Dr. Shefali, and she explains what our children are. They are whole, complete, worthy, just as they are. Unique beings with their own blueprint, extraordinary in their ordinariness, right? Imperfect humans who shouldn't be shamed, neither good nor bad. They just are. What are we missing out, right? What happens to us is we have these issues over here. Our children are not trophies that we show off on social media, responsible for filling our inner cup, born to fulfill our dreams, fantasies, puppets who follow our own command blindly, clay that we carve into our mini me's. Yeah, be like me. That's what we want to do. We want to fix them to look like us, to sound like us, to have a certain way, right? While they are unique in their own temperament. They are born with a temperament. You have a sensitive child, you have an angry, reactive child, you have a shy child. Children are different. They are born with their own temperament. So we have to be careful how we deal with the children. We cannot fix them. That's not possible. So now here will be some interaction, and I'll ask you guys to unmute yourselves when I ask this question, which is, what was your fantasy child? So I'll give you an example. People come to me and say, I really wanted my child to be a doctor, but my child loves art. And now the reality is actually not matching my fantasy. And I'm finding it very hard to accept the artist because I had very high expectations that my child is going to be a doctor. And I had these big dreams and expectations, but the reality is totally different. So now I struggle as a parent. So they tell me these things, and I remember even I had dreams for my child, right? I had certain mindsets that my child is going to be, some people have these expectations, tall and slim and beautiful and, whatever it is. And then the reality is different. So our imaginary child is totally different from our reality. So can someone share what their fantasy child was? Yes, someone please.
You can unmute yourself and share your input in there as well. Or you can write
so my imaginary child was someone that would sit and color quietly and play nicely with his toys and play with his blocks properly, quote unquote. But I have a very hyperactive 5-year-old.
Yes, subhanallah. Thank you so much for sharing. You had a calm and collective child in your head, yeah? Mini me,
Yeah.
robots, it's going to listen to me. Everything is going to be perfect. This is our expectation. But when the child comes, it's a total different story. So yeah, thank you for sharing this. Exactly my point. See, our expectations, our imaginary child is different and our reality is different. So now when we do not there's a problem when we don't accept our reality. What happens is we have expectations and the reality is totally different. When we are not accepting of this child, then there is going to be a problem. You are going to lose it easily, because if you wanted a calm, collective child, but you have a hyperactive child, you would want them to sit, but that's not going to happen, is it? Because they're hyperactive. So accepting the child, giving them the activities that is going to release their energy is very important. So acceptance is key, right? We have so many expectations for our children. I want my child to go to Stanford. My child should do, I don't know, go to Hausa. They should accomplish this and accomplish that. But in reality, the children have their own temperament. They have their own dreams. They are their own beings. So they have their dreams and desires. Many times what parents do is that, they have their own unfulfilled dreams that they put on their child. And that is not fair. It's not fair on the child. If the child wants to be an artist, then you have to support the child, right? What is our greatest fear, right? We have a lot of fears for our children. We want them to be protected. We want to secure them. These are real things, right? I mean, you have to protect your child, and yes, it's a concern, but sometimes the fears are, they are not as valid. Like, we want to rescue our children from crying. We are afraid. Why is my child sad? How can I rescue my child? We are afraid of emotions. When the child cries, we are restless. We get anxious. So we will go and rescue the child. Okay, don't cry. My 3-year-old, don't cry. I'll give you ice cream. Let me distract the child. So that is something that should not be done. When you are a conscious parent, you understand, you validate their big emotions. You accept the child and you teach them to feel their feelings. What is our greatest hope for the child? Maybe somebody could share something. What is your hope for your child? Maybe anyone, please, if you can just share.
To be happy.
Okay, thank you very much. That is amazing, to be happy. So what is happiness? Can you explain to me what is happiness? Define happiness, please.
To be content, to feel that he's doing what Allah had wanted him to do, that he's at peace with himself and feel fulfilled.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so happy can look different, right? Happiness is what? To be content. Sometimes we are not content. Why? I'll tell you. Yeah, happiness is contentment according to you, but other people think of happiness as achievement. Right? I achieve more and more in my life by, having a good career. I have to have a good car, I have to have a good house, and I have to be successful. I have to be active. I have to do, so sometimes happiness can be a very big trap. We have to be careful. What is your greatest regret? So maybe if somebody could share, what would be their regret? Anyone, please.
For me, it's as a parent, trying to teach too much too early.
Okay, thank you. All right. So why do you think you're doing that?
Just that anxiety that she'll be behind, or there's so much to cover.
Exactly. Thank you very much. That means you're already conscious of what you're doing is not right. You see, the answer is within you. We are divine beings and we know when we are wrong. We know it. We know it in our gut feeling. We know it. We just need to sit down and ask ourselves exactly. So thank you. The regret of over teaching, the regret of maybe shouting at your child, or, when the child is having a tantrum, even you are having a tantrum because you have had a tough day, your needs are not met. The child is giving you a tough time. They've had a, tough day themselves. And then when you are overworked or overtired, even you are going to have a tantrum when the child is having a tantrum if you don't know how to self-regulate. And the greatest desire for our children. Now, this is obviously, we all want our children to be successful, disciplined, religious, practicing Muslims. All right, that is still, doable. But what kind of child do you prefer? Usually in a family, we have, if you have multiple children, so child 1 and child 2, we have one who is adventurous, loud, outgoing, resilient, inquisitive, and the other one is quiet, shy, and thoughtful, creative and clingy as well. Which one would you guys prefer? Ladies, which one would you prefer? in your chats, just child 1 and child 2. If I can just have participants writing in the chat, 1 or 2, that's all. All right, wow, we have 2s as well. All right, 1 and 2, okay. All right. All right, one more question. Just on the chat, you can write 1 or 2. Do you prefer a compliant child or defiant child? Compliant or defiant? Now the question changes, 1 or 2. Compliant or defiant? 1, 2. 1.5. This is funny. All right, thank you, ladies. Compliant. All right, that's better. Maybe you can just write compliant or, yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, ladies. So compliant or defiant, all right? This is many times when I ask parents compliant or defiant, they'll say compliant, definitely compliant. I want somebody who listens to me, follows my rules, and that's it. I don't want defiant children. No, 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 no. They are just a headache. I can't. It's just too much. All right, but that's our imagination. Remember what I said, our fantasy. The reality is totally different. You might have a compliant child, but you also have a defiant one too, right? So let's come to the false self, all right? I want to explain to you why these things happen, all right? These are very important things and hopefully we can finish quickly. The false self, so this is an egg. As you can see, this is the true self, this is the inner child, and this is the false self. The false self is a shell we create as children in reaction to others' unconsciousness that causes to split from our true self and develop a false persona to protect ourselves. Because the shell was created when we were too young to know what was happening, we come to think that this is who we really are. Like a chick and its egg, at first, the shell keeps us safe. But at some point, we must break free of the shell or else we won't continue to grow. So what happens is we have to understand we are all born with a true self, which is it validates itself and compares itself to no one. It is in abundance, courage, truth, transparency, and authenticity. But the inner child, okay, the inner child is created when the child experiences a discordance between its inner truth and the reality posted by its parents. So the inner child has needs, unmet needs. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Am I worthy? Do I belong? Do you love me? Do I matter? The true self gets buried under the unmet needs of the inner child. So, what is the false self? The false self is the inauthentic self, the pain body or the ego. All right? The pain body and the ego is created for a reason, right? Okay, it protects the inner child by forming a defense pattern. It needs validation and approval. It's defensive and reactive. It's anxious and fearful. It worries about the future, worries about what others think. It's unconscious, and it is who we think we should be. How do we know when we are in our false self? Whenever you are being reactive or defensive or anxious, you should know that you are no more in your true self. Now you are in your ego. You are in your false self. So whenever we are reactive, defensive, or anxious, quickly you should have those conscious alarm bells on and think, oh, what am I doing? All right, so now this is a different concept here, which I wanted to discuss, that we live in a world of form, all right? So we are formless beings. We are divine formless beings, all right? This is our true self, and this is the world of form. What happens is, when we lived in the world of form, we are attached. We are attached to our identities, all right? We identify with our identities, a mother, a sister, or a role of a wife, or anything else. You identify with the identities. You identify yourself with your accolades, with your achievements, with your relationships. You will identify with your culture. You are identifying with rules, at home, you think you are the mother, so you are in charge all the time, and nothing can go wrong and everything like that, right? But we forget our true self understands that we are divine. I belong, I'm worthy, I see me, I understand that I am divine being. And divinity, what does divinity mean? It means you come from abundance, you have acceptance, you have compassion, you have no self, no possession, and no contentment. What I mean here is, that means this is our spirit. Yeah, it does not identify with your accolades, with your achievements, with your roles, with your approval. Everything is just in the form-based world, and this can be toxic. If we are too attached and you don't know how to detach, then it is toxic, because this is how rigidity comes. See, what happens is, when we are in ego, we are rigid. We want our rules to be followed, like, there is no other way. So if we want to grow, what we need to do is, we need to understand. What need to understand is, this is the spiritual realm. All right, then we have a psychological realm, and we have a physical realm, and we have to understand, in order to reach transcendence, which is beyond spiritual. All right, so this is our physical, then we have psychological, then we also have spiritual, and then we also have transcendence. In transcendence realm, you will not identify, you will not attach. So you live in the world of form, you do the doing, which is important, because you have to achieve things as well. You have to achieve, you have to perform, but you don't have to attach. We can attach, but we should know how to detach as well from the outcomes. We have to understand nothing is in our control, not our children, not anything else, because life is ebb and flow. You cannot be attached and controlling. You can attach for a bit, because you have to do the doing in order to be the being as well. So you have to achieve. It's not like you don't have to achieve, you have to. But attaching and then detaching, remembering that you are divine. What is your true self? You are divine. So you need to also be understanding you come from abundance and not lack. When we come from lack, we are going to be rigid. So what happens is, when our inner child roars, yeah, so when we feel insulted, disrespected, there is some need which was not met by our parent, because it's not possible. Even if you are a conscious parent, no matter how conscious you are going to be triggered. So it's human to get triggered. But when you are conscious of your triggers, you understand you need to introspect. But what we were taught was to look out in the world of form. So if I'm upset, let me just, have an ice cream. That will make me feel better. How I'm going to eat my emotions away. I'm restless, I'm anxious, I have sadness, anxiety, but I do not understand, because I was not taught to maybe feel my feelings. So we need to understand, in order to be conscious parents, we need to heal our inner child wounds. We have to help ourselves to understand our emotions. So look within. Whenever you are triggered, look within. See, is your need met? What are the inner child needs? Do you see me? Do you love me? Do you honor me? Do you trust me? Do I belong? Who am I? Am I worthy? Do I matter? Am I safe? Do you care? So all these things are actually within us. And when we feel triggered, we need to check, what is wrong? Why am I feeling so disrespected? Why am I attaching so much to this disrespect thing that's going on in my life? So you need to check, what is it with this value of disrespect that is annoying you so much? Since I'm giving you an example of disrespect from one of my friends who asked me, my child is disrespecting me and that's really triggering me. What do I do? What do I do? It's because we were taught that, respect is a huge thing. But we need to understand, yes, it is. But if we see our children from the lens of divinity, then we are going to respect them first. So when your child is having a tantrum, when your child is stomping their feet, when they are closing the door and shouting, let them be. You show respect at that time, because you see the child as a divine being. You're not seeing parenting as hierarchical, right? You're not going to see the parenting paradigm as hierarchical. where, you know, I'm the mother, you are the child. You listen to me, I make the rules. I know better, I am wiser, I am older. I have seen life. But yes, even if you are older and wiser, you are supposed to practice the best version of yourself. Where is your akhlaq, right? Our mannerisms have to change. Our manners, right? We have to be showing our children, I respect you. That's when the child will respect us. So many a times it happens in my life. Yeah, the child will be disrespecting, shouting, and all that. I'll just back off, give some space. Okay, I cannot be here right now because I can see you're really upset. I'll give you the space and we can talk later. So this is very important. This is the true self, the inner child's unmet needs, and the ego's defenses. All right. So the ego's faces. What does the ego look like? Very interesting. Can you see these things? Withdrawal, procrastination, laziness, distraction, avoidance, addiction, enmeshment, codependency, sarcasm. I hope you guys know the meanings of these words because they are huge words, like especially codependency. Yeah, we are too much enmeshed in the relationship. So when the child is crying and you are really, really getting frustrated and you want to rescue the child, codependency, be careful. If you're too enmeshed, you have to be careful, right? Then overthinking, repressed feelings, indulgent, then restrictive. Here, this one is very interesting. This is when we go on a diet, right? We are restrictive. And then when the diet is over, oh, indulgence, have the chocolate cake, have the ice cream. We are not aware what we are doing. Unhealthy relationship with food because we are repressing our emotions. Our emotions settle in our tummy. So when we do not address our emotions, what happens is we eat them. We eat our emotions because we are not ready to look within. We are anxious, but we are not sitting with our emotions, and hence we indulge. Victimhood, perfectionism, overworking, overgiver, martyr, pleaser, avoiding conflict, unable to say no. So the ego has multiple faces, as you can see here. See? All these things that you might be going through, everyone goes through this. This is normal. We all have a false self and we all have a true self. And we are all divine beings, and inshallah, we'll grow out of this. So as you can see, yeah, we can be rageful, depressive, no self-care, passive, sulking, whining, pessimist, anxiety, negative. When we are very negative, we are fearful, addiction, addiction to food as well. So this part is also doesn't mean addicted to only substances or something like that. No. Over cheerful, over empathic, can't be quiet. Sometimes people are so anxious they need to keep talking. Yeah. So as I said, you guys are aware of the inner child needs. The true self is very interesting. Yeah. It comes from abundance, courage, truth, transparency, authenticity. So whenever you are anxious or angry and reactive, you know it, that you are in your false self, right? So you need to then do what? Let's go and see, what does connection look like? Yeah. So connection, what is connection? Right? Accepting the other person's as is, there now, without any exceptions or conditions, without projecting our needs onto them. So the children are the best guides because they live in the present moment. Why we usually have conflicts is because we don't live in the present moment. We either live in the future, so we have high expectations, or we have this thing in our head, the fantasy child again, high expectations. I want my child to do this, and when the child in the present moment is not able to do that, there is going to be a tiff, there is going to be a fight. So we need to learn to live in the present moment and not make a big deal out of what's happening. So connection can be multiple things you can do with the children. Take them out on a date, take them for dinner, play board games. We used to have board games in our house, and we would make pizza, and children would be happy. And then everybody would sit and share how their week went. Or you can have multiple times these things in your daily life. You can set up 2 or 3 days where you can have board games. You can do many other things, many things like story time. You could do with the children exercise. You could teach them baking. You could be together in the kitchen and teach a child skill. And in the meantime, you are connecting with the child, showing them patience, that I'm there for you. I'm going to show you how this is done. We could bake cookies and cake and rough housing. That's one thing that's very good. If the children are very, defiant or anxious, you can do rough housing. Play with them roughly. Have a mat, right? Tickle your child, do somersaults, encourage them to have, if you have a swing in the house, then the children can play on the swing. So this rough housing is very good for the children who are anxious. They learn limits in rough housing. They understand, okay, I should not hurt mama. I can tickle her, but I cannot overdo it, because you say, okay, ouch. When you say ouch, the child has to stop. So you have these things in play. You teach them limits. This is doable, this is not doable. What is consciousness? It's an alien concept because we have not been trained in it. It's simply being aware of when you are being unconscious. All right. It is to be highly present and vigilant, but completely detached from any outcome and simply adhering to the present moment. Understanding that, present moment is very important. When you are present, you are in your heart. See? So whenever you are hierarchical, punitive, reactive, shouting, you are already in your head. Okay? You are not in your heart anymore. You are living your conditioning. So you have to be careful. When that happens, now I'm just living my conditioning. Now I'm no more in my heart, right? Our emotional legacy is very important. So conscious parenting shows us that it is our own emotional legacy from childhood that is impacting our relationship with our children. It shows us that our own children reveal to us our unresolved wounds of worthiness. If we dare to look into the mirror, this journey with our children will show us the way we heal our wounds and give us the opportunity to change the filters we are looking through and see our children for who they truly are. So instead of asking the questions, how am I going to control or manage my child? How do I need to fix my child? How do I make my child eat breakfast? How do I make my child a perfect A student? To asking the questions, how can I see my child for who they truly are? We start asking questions like, what is my child showing me about myself right now? When I'm triggered, I need to question myself. What about this child right now is reflecting of my inner terrain? How is this behavior showing me how I can move into my greater awareness and presence? How is my child reflecting how I need to grow? All right. So we need to wake up whenever we are triggered. So when you are triggered, you need to look into the mirror and ask, what does this say about me? That is my child making me anxious right now because he's not brushing his teeth or not having the breakfast? How is my child showing me thirst of control? I want to control the situation. Why do I need control? How is this showing me the need of perfection in my life? Why do I need perfection? Remember, one of the faces of ego is perfection, right? So this is a wake-up call. See yourself into the mirror whenever you are triggered and ask yourself this question. What is wrong with me? What is my need? Why am I not being able to connect? Because I'm having an agenda. I am over processing. I'm overthinking. I'm anxious. I'm sad, I am mad, right? So I need to self regulate. We need to understand whenever the children are acting out, all right? Acting out could be any behavior like lying, cheating, stealing, substance abuse, procrastination, failing in school, cutting self harm. Behavior, withdrawal, rebellion, right? All these things are happening due to an underlying unmet emotional need. So whenever the child is acting out, okay, there is an underlying emotional need that has gone unmet. So you need to recognize that the child is indirectly trying to show me the need. When when they they can't get your attention, they are going to act out in a indirect way. So they are going to be mischievous, they are going to be lying or something like that. So you need to understand there is an emotional need that is not met. For example, if the child wants to tell you the truth about something in their life and they don't feel safe to do so, they are going to create a situation where they will lie to their parents. The parent gets upset with them, punishes them, and this further shuts the child down, and the cycle repeats itself. All right, why is this happening? We are hardwired in our brain to keep ourselves safe. So if the child does not feel safe, they are not going to tell you the truth. Forget that, right? So connection is vital. You want your child to say the truth? Make sure you're connected. You don't make a big issue out of what the child is telling you, no matter how big the thing might be. You being understanding and emotionally mature is highly required for conscious parenting. Why does this happen? Why does the child lie? Okay, this is Maslow's needs, and he's explaining here what are the basic needs. The physiological needs are food, water, warmth, rest. The safety and security of the child is important. If the child doesn't feel safe with you, they're going to lie, because that's how we are hardwired. Our brain is designed to keep us safe. So child is not going to say the truth because they have to make sure they are safe. They know, oh my God, my mom is going to react here and she's going to make a mountain out of a mole. She's going to be shouting at me. So I don't want that sermon or lecture or punishment. So they're going to lie. So remember, right? This is important. Safety needs, belonging and love needs. This is very important. That's why connection over correction. Having a relationship with your child is so important. Okay? Because it's a psychological need. Understand that having a relationship is important, because if you have a relationship with your child, a good relationship, what will happen is they'll have high self-esteem. They will go up here. They will feel accomplished. They'll do more. Then, as they become stronger with you, communication, transparency, authenticity, vulnerability, all this will come in the relationship, right? They are open, they can talk to you, they know you are understanding, they know you will not judge them, they know you're not going to criticize or be punitive, right? So then from a high self-esteem, they'll go to self-actualization, where they'll have their full potential and they will be creative. To reach creativity, they need high self-esteem. So what happens is always the parents has to see beneath the behavior, instead of the parent asking what is the need beneath the behavior. Okay, and realizing the child wishes to feel safe and understood, and the parents keep reinforcing an unsafe home environment, leaving the kid no choice but to lie. Similarly, those children who are abusing substance also are crying for emotional connection and safety. Children who escape into drugs do so because they are unable to find a way to connect to the current realities and feel safe in their world. All right? So always remember, there are multiple needs. Now, to meet all the needs is not easy, right? So as you can see, this is just for example purposes: affection, boundaries, equal treatment, protection, serenity, stability, trust, understanding, warmth. These are multiple things that happen, and we try to do our best. Okay, we are human beings, but we try our best. All right, so there is an emotional cup. Everyone has this emotional cup, right? So children are going to empty it, right? So what fills the cup? Friendship, one-on-one time, love and affection, connection, succeeding. What empties the cup? Stress, rejection, strain, okay, loneliness, isolation, yelling, punishment, failing, fatigue. All right, so we have to be careful. We have to be careful when the children are acting out. Look at the need. Look at the need. What are the children missing out? They need love, affection, security, attention. Fill that cup up. All right. Some children are very sensitive. Some children, their cup will get empty very fast. They need multiple hugs and kisses and I love yous. And it's amazing how we have to keep topping them off, right? All right. So looking underneath the behavior. So usually when the parents come to me, they'll say, my child is very angry. My child is very angry. So let's see this analogy. Okay, so icebergs are giant floating pieces of ice found on the coldest parts of the ocean. What you can see from the above is just a tiny part. Most of the iceberg is hidden under the surface. So when your child is angry, you are going to teach them emotional regulation, not when they are angry. Don't talk to them when they are angry, when they are calm. Why are you angry? See, underneath the iceberg, there are multiple emotions, as you can see. Yeah, you can see frustration, worried, nervous, grumpy, overwhelmed, shame, guilt, attacked, embarrassed, annoyed, rejected, scared. So the list goes on. This is how anger works. Often, when we are angry, there are other emotions hidden under the surface. The only way children can learn is when we show them. We ask them when they are calm, what made you angry? What is it that is in there? You need to sit with it and ask yourself, what is it that's bothering you so much? All right, doesn't mean when I say about conscious parenting, it doesn't mean you should not have boundaries. No, that's not true. Okay. I want you to understand that I'm advocating correctionless childhood. It doesn't mean I'm advocating correctionless childhood or boundaryless childhood. No, no, no. On the contrary, what I'm suggesting is parenting in the present moment, attuned with yourself. Be attuned with yourself. You can have boundaries, and there are two kinds of boundaries. All right. We have boundaries which are sand boundaries. Now, these boundaries can be negotiable. All right, they can negotiate, right? And you can let them negotiate. So there are things that you can compromise on, right? But then there are stone boundaries. And with stone boundaries, excuse me, safety, security is vital. And you have to understand with stone boundaries, we can't have many of these. We can only have 2 or 3. So you need to choose. Yeah. So it's your salah time, homework, and maybe shower. I don't know. Something like this. The rest you have to compromise, right? You have to compromise because you have to understand. You cannot micromanage. You can't have so many rules. You can't be rigid. You have to be a flexible parent because if you want connection over correction, flexibility is the key, right? So that's why we cannot have many stone boundaries, only 3 maximum, because you can't be rigid. Most of the time, you have to be flexible. Yes, there are things of concern like safety and security. You have to be rigid with that. Definitely, you are looking out for your child, where they are going, what they have to keep you posted. This all is important. So that's why I put this slide in. All right, how to be a calm parent. So whenever you feel triggered, remember, take the word pause. Whenever you are angry, quiet. Be quiet. Immediately, space to wonder. When you are quiet, start asking yourself, why am I defensive? What is making me mean? Why am I feeling this way? What do I need right now? What do I value? All right, definitely connection, right? So, in order to be calm, first take the pause. Be quiet, take the pause. Okay, so you are going to, in order to show the children the pause, you have to first be self-regulated. If we want our children to develop their self-regulation, we need to model how we are going to regulate our own reactions when we are parenting. I am feeling frustrated. I'm going to get a glass of water, and then I will come back to you and we can clean up together. So you see, you explain yourself that you need time out, that I'm exhausted and finding it hard to show up for you today. Maybe we can do something quiet together, story or stickers. So give them options. I'm feeling cross right now. I'm going to pause and take some slow breaths. We can talk about what happened when we are both calm, right? So you need to ask your child, I need a timeout. I need a break. I'm very tired today. Please understand that I need a few minutes of silence and I'll talk to you when I'm okay. So you take the leave, go for that walk, drink the water, do wudu, meditate, be kind to yourself. We have to be careful how we speak to our children. This is vital. The way we speak to our child matters, for the words travel beyond the ears, settling into their cervixes of the hearts and the cervixes of the heart of their self-worth. So how important are words, right? Very, very important. It's not just telling them things. Remember, these words are going to be stored in their hearts. So whenever the parents come and tell me, I'm very anxious, what do I do? What do I do? So I will tell them, all right, I'll give you some mantras. When you are taking the pause, you need to say these things so you can remember. Our relationship is my first priority. This is what I do, right? When I'm angry, my relationship is my first priority. I cannot self-sabotage. No way. This is not an emergency, so I'm not supposed to be shouting or getting things done just because I want to do things fast. So I remind myself that. I remind myself I can't win her heart by force because love conquers all. But forcing is not going to work. All feelings are okay, all right? So when the child is overwhelmed or crying or sad, you are accepting, validating your feelings and your child's feelings. I can only control myself. I understand that, right? He's just a child. So if he's having a tantrum, let him have that tantrum. You hold that space for the child, be available, validate their feelings, give them the hug if they need. Ask first, do you need a hug? All right, moving on. Why is it important to feel our feelings? Okay, why your feelings are a gateway to your healing. All right, it's important. We were not taught to feel our feelings. So whenever the unpleasant feelings arise and the mind launches itself into whatever inner story it accompanies, like I'm not lovable, I'm a loser, stop thinking your feelings. Redirect your mind and thoughts into sensations. So when we are very angry, start naming what you're feeling. I call it name it to tame it, right? So what are you feeling? You are clenching your fists, tightness in your chest, your ears are burning hot, your head feels like exploding, there is palpitation happening. So I call it name it to tame it. Name it, feel it, take the pause and take deep breaths in. So all of us together, I want you to take a deep breath in. Inhale for 4 and exhale for 6. Now remember, when you're inhaling, you do belly breathing. So your belly goes out, right? Inhale for 4. So again, you do it. Exhale for 6. Once you do that, it takes 90 seconds to bring your emotions down. So hold yourself for the 90 seconds. Then you'll be calm. When you're calm, you can respond. Instead of being reactive, you will be responding because you took the pause. All right, so what is the difference between and responding is huge. The former is a knee-jerk, unconscious, highly emotional, habitual way of addressing an external situation. The latter is a thoughtful, calm, deep, and feeling, and has no emotional backlash. That is what your child needs. All right. Remember, whenever you are angry, what things can you control? You can control your behavior, your actions, my interpretation of events, so your own interpretation of events, how I react, and what I can take away from it. All right. So choose to be in your own control. Don't try to control the child because you know that will not work, right? All right. So what happens to us? I just missed a slide. Just a minute. What happens to us when we are angry? What happens is you flip your lid. All right. So I want all of us to make a fist. Please, everyone, I know I can't see you. Some of the cameras are off, but it's okay. Just make a fist and hold it, and I'll explain to you. As you can see, this is our prefrontal cortex. Okay. This is the brain model by Dr. Dan Siegel. And it's from the book, The Whole Brain Child. And he explains this. All right. The fist, you can see this. This is the prefrontal cortex. All right. When this is engaged, you are rational, mentally available, flexible, you are making good decisions. Okay, now we lift the fingers up and we see this. This is the amygdala, all right? This is our emotional brain. So when we flip our lid and we are angry when we are in fear, when we are in anxiety or sadness, okay, we cannot calm down because we have flipped our lid. We cannot think of a solution because the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for thinking and making decisions, is actually gone. So you are now, let's say, in rage, all right? So you will not be able to think. There is no way you can think. So when you start taking the pause, take the pause, do the breathing. As you do it, inhale for 4, exhale for 6. Do it 4 to 5 times, 90 seconds, and the prefrontal cortex will be engaged again. All right? And when the prefrontal cortex is engaged, now you can respond. You can think, you can make wise decisions, and you will be rational, right? So as I said, thinking brain, yellow zone is caution, you are starting to get triggered, and feeling brain is the amygdala, the thumb that I showed you. All right, so conscious parenting. An awakened parent steps back, allows their child's spirit to unfold. The path to a peaceful world begins with a childhood that's resplendent with a sense of worth and the freedom to be true to ourselves. So authenticity is so important in conscious parenting. The quest for wholeness can never begin on the external level. It's always an inside job. Release your attachments to how things ought to be and instead surrender to how they actually are. All right, I've done with my PowerPoint and I hope you guys learned a lot. It's a lot to process, but I'm available. If you need clarifications, if you need sessions with me or anything, I'm there for you guys. Thank you everyone for listening and being patient with me.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. You know, there was a time when I was about to have tears in my eyes when you explained about the connection with our children. And sometimes we forget that, you know, they're little children or, you know, even older children. It's, you know what, honestly, I don't have any words for it. We love them so much and we are trying to do the best for them. But sometimes you're right. We got all this anxiety, we've got everything that's happening around us. And we just want to do our best, but we forget that sometimes, and we're just on an automated mode. And you're right, a lot of times it's because how we were, you know, when we were little as well, our surroundings, and is different now, obviously, you know, what they're going through. And sometimes I think you're right, we just have to be patient, be there for them. We forget that, you know, they are there. They've had a hard day in school or they're going through their emotions, and instead of us helping them out, sometimes we kind of just overburden it on them. So thank you so much, that was amazing. Alhamdulillah, and I'm sure a lot of moms will appreciate today's session, so thank you so much. They are